Hi, and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, the FDA recently approved a new treatment for people with Alzheimer's disease via the accelerated approval pathway. The VP of Program Services for the Alzheimer's Association Hudson Valley chapter will tell you more. How will this new treatment help those with Alzheimer's disease? Then, the Bronx African American History Project is dedicated to uncovering the histories of African descent in the Bronx. The founder and director of the BAAHP joins us to share more about this project. What contributions have African Americans made in the Bronx? After that, we take a look at some of the amazing packages from our BronxNet reporters. And finally, many people struggle to love their skin or know how to form a proper skincare routine for their specific skin type. The author of Skin, A Guide to Loving the Skin You're In, shares with you some tips on how you can get started. What will readers learn from this book? So stay tuned. All this and much more is heading your way because we're now officially open. Hello everyone, I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today is Tuesday, February 7th. You are now watching Open, a live program bringing the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia, and according to the CDC in 2020, as many as 5.8 million Americans were living with it. The FDA recently approved the drug lecanemab, also known as Leqembi. The drug is designed as treatment to assist those living with the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. Before we meet our guests, here's a short video with some facts about Alzheimer's from the Alzheimer's Association. Let's take a look. Joining me to discuss what this new treatment means for patients is VP of Program Services at the Alzheimer's Association Hudson Valley chapter, Meg Boyce. Meg, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, before we jump into the conversation about, what's happening for these patients, which is truly amazing, can you just talk about your organization a little bit?
Sure. The Alzheimer's Association, really our mission is to find a cure while still providing care and support for individuals who are currently been diagnosed with not only Alzheimer's disease, but any form of dementia. And we really do encourage early detection and diagnosis. And our vision is a world without Alzheimer's and all dementia.
Now, because this is a large organization, there are different chapters. Yours is the Hudson Valley chapter. Can you just talk a little bit, about how your work affects New Yorkers or people in New York?
Sure. We all have the same similar core services. So the New York City chapter, Hudson Valley chapter, wherever you are in New York, you'll be able to have access to our 24-hour helpline, which is usually the first contact that people reach out to us. That's 1-800-272-3900. We also have care consultants, which are master level social workers or someone of a comparable degree that can sit down with a family and kind of assess the situation and help that family develop a plan. We have support groups. We have support groups for caregivers, for early stage people, for individuals with younger onset. Sometimes we have specific support groups, whether it's bereavement, anticipatory grief. We also have several educational programs, not only to the general community, but also to caregivers. So we really have quite an array of programs and support.
Now, I'm really glad that you talked about education. I think in order for us to truly understand why this is really important, people should know what Alzheimer's is. Now, I know everybody thinks that they know what it is, but can you
Yeah,
just tell us the medical definition or what it truly means to, be living with Alzheimer's disease?
sure. So, Alzheimer's and dementia have a tendency to get mixed up, and dementia is not a diagnosis. So, I just always want to clarify that dementia is a word for a set of symptoms.
Mhm.
And those symptoms cause somebody's inability to get through their day to day activities. Alzheimer's disease, of course, is the most prevalent form. Alzheimer's disease itself, there are two hallmarks that happen in the brain. We first of all develop what's called beta amyloid plaque, and that builds on the outside of our brain cell, which is called our neuron. It's a type of protein. And then inside the neuron, there is another type of protein called tau that develops these little strings inside the cell, and then the cell dies. So the hope is trying to find a way of slowing the progression or preventing the plaques and the tangles from developing, to prevent Alzheimer's.
Now, as I mentioned, there is, some treatment in regard to this. The
Yes.
FDA recently, approved this as Leqembi. Can you just
Yes.
talk about that and just, the importance of this approval?
Oh, it's such an exciting time. I've been with the organization for 23 years, and the past 5 years have really been very exciting on the side of research. And that's because of the increase in funding. So in 2021, the very first medication or treatment in a new group of treatments was approved. That's Aduhelm. And then we just had Leqembi approved. So they're both in the same group of medications. And what these treatments are doing, they're actually getting rid of the beta amyloid protein in the brain. So the tricky part is these are infusion therapies. It's not a pill. So the person would have to go to an infusion center in order to receive the treatment so that the treatment can get in past the blood-brain barrier, connect itself to the plaque, and begin to break it off. So this is the first generation of treatments that actually is slowing the progression of the disease, which is extremely exciting to see that we're going to really change the trajectory of this disease moving forward.
I kind of want to piggyback off of that because you mentioned that you've been a part of the organization for a really long time. That means that you were able to see, us get to this point. And as you mentioned, this may be pretty much the first time that we're seeing something like this. Can you just talk about, what that means for so many families, so many caregivers, or people just living with this disease?
So the medications that have been available, they don't slow the progression of the disease. So we've had medications since 1996 that have been FDA approved. But what those groups of medications do is they simply keep the symptoms at bay. The disease is still progressing. So usually the family will suddenly see a sudden decline in a loved one who's on one of those medications. So what's really exciting about this whole new generation is that it's going to change the time frame that this person has to enjoy being with family. So instead of progressing at a much quicker rate, this generation of treatments is going to slow that progression so that they can be involved in family activities, attend weddings and birthdays for a much longer period of time than before these treatments were available. And that's what I think is really exciting about this.
Now, I'm curious to know, there's so many stages when it comes to Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Who is the perfect candidate for this type of treatment?
This type of treatment, you have to either have MCI, which is short for mild cognitive impairment, which is a form of dementia that happens even before the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. So either mild cognitive impairment or early stage Alzheimer's, but you also have to have a PET scan that shows that you have the hallmarks of the disease consisting of those plaques, because that's what these treatments focus on. So there's a very specific criteria in order to be eligible to receive this treatment.
Now, there are going to be other challenges that may arise whenever
yes.
we're talking about treatments or anything,
Yeah.
in regard to medicine. It's access. Can you talk about some challenges people may have trying to get access to this type of life-changing treatment?
The biggest hurdle we have right now is CMS. CMS is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. This is the first time in history that they have provided very, very specific guidelines for people to have access. And it's very unfortunate. So right now, CMS's guidelines for this line of treatment, you have to be part of a clinical trial in order to receive it. And there aren't a lot of sites across the country. And so what the Alzheimer's Association right now is focusing on is working with CMS to change those guidelines, because we feel it should be up to each individual if they want to try this treatment or not. We don't feel it's right that the CMS is saying you need to be in a clinical trial to receive this treatment. So that is probably the biggest obstacle right now. Once we get past that, then it's, of course, getting insurance companies to cover it. It's not cheap. It's about $37,000 a year because it is an infusion treatment. So that will be the next step. But the first hurdle is getting CMS to change their guidelines so that people have the right to make that choice and decision with their primary physician.
And when you say clinical trial, can you just explain what that means? Is that like people who are in a study? Can you just expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah. So all of medications, even after they're FDA approved, they do continue in clinical trials to really look at the efficacy and the long-term effects. And so these folks that really want these medications, they have to be in a clinical trial. So they have to sign up, they have to be approved. There has to be a clinical trial in their area, which I think is the biggest obstacle. Like I said, there are very few. So then they're really going to be at least medically observed very closely, but it does really prevent a majority of people wanting to be involved in getting this treatment.
Now, we know that there are going to be, some obstacles and some challenges. What can people do now to, just ensure that their family members are being taken care of, especially those who do have Alzheimer's disease?
Well, I would encourage them to reach out to their local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. They can go to alz.org and put in their zip code to receive not only support for themselves, but a lot of chapters also have a lot of wonderful activities and gatherings for people diagnosed. I think the second most important thing, now that we see what's happening on the research side, is to become an advocate. You need to really step up and be involved in the public policy and advocacy side of things in order to change the trajectory of what's happening right now in our society, and so that these medications are available for their loved ones.
Meg, thank you so much for joining us and having this really important conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
To find more about the Alzheimer's Association and to learn about their various locations, please go to their website at www.alz.org or follow the Hudson Valley chapter on Twitter at @ALZ_HV. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more Open right after this.
Even though we didn't grow up together, he's my favorite brother.
Hey, sis.
I'm the baby of the family, and he's the gentle giant.
What you know about Poor Georgia?
Man, please, that's a classic.
You know when they say people are a rare breed? Yeah, he's that.
I'm sorry, I'll be back in a few hours.
Don't worry, Shug. You know I'm for you.
I know.
Go get the football.
That was my favorite memory. He was always for ya. This is a true story of me, Bridget Floyd, and this guy, George Perry Floyd Jr., my big brother.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Welcome back. In honor of Black History Month, we're highlighting work that further analyzes the contributions of Black leaders and trailblazers. The Bronx African American History Project dedicates time to research that highlights the accomplishments and contributions of Black Americans right here in the Bronx. Founder and director of the Bronx African American History Project, Dr. Mark Naison, joins me to discuss this effort. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me.
I'm so happy to be here.
Now, I want to talk about Black History Month just in general. Can you talk about the origins, of this month and, why we acknowledge it here in the U.S.?
Well, I think this started with the historian Carter Woodson even before the Great Depression, who felt that our universities and our schools were not including the contributions of African Americans in what they were presenting, and that organizations had to do this independently. So this began outside of schools and eventually entered schools. And after the Civil Rights Movement, it became policy of many public schools around the country. But none of this came without a fight. And this is particularly important now that in many parts of the country, African American history is being pushed out of schools. We have to remember we had a fight to get it in. And Dr. Woodson was probably more responsible for this than anyone.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because even now it's still very controversial. And I want to know, in your opinion, why do you think we're seeing this reaction and just the strong pushback towards Black History Month being taught in schools?
Because I think it's because we found out so much about things that happened in the past that were kept from view, that present the country in a very different light than most people have viewed it. For example, take the destruction of Black Wall Street in Tulsa in 1921. This was the wealthiest Black community in the country that was burned to the ground, a 36 square block area destroyed, scores of businesses burned, and hundreds of people killed, thousands pushed into exile. No one knew about this. And if we're talking about, obstacles to Black wealth creation in the United States, we have many episodes of mass murder of prosperous Black communities. Another one of these took place in the state of Florida in Rosewood in the 1920s. So we have a lot of young historians who are uncovering this, and I think it's very threatening information, especially because it encourages a serious discourse about reparations. I think once the true picture of, and we're not just talking about enslavement, we're talking about things that were happening in the 20th century when Black people, were making progress economically, and that was perceived as a deadly threat and an incitement to violence. That's a pretty disturbing subject, isn't it?
Right.
And I think people are afraid of having that discussed.
Well, I'm actually really glad that you're here and that we're having this discussion because a huge part of your work is, analyzing African American history here in New York, but specifically the Bronx. I think that's so important because most of the time when we do hear about these stories, they're usually from different parts throughout the country. So first, can you just talk about your organization or the Black African American History Project
Okay.
before we jump into that?
Yeah, sure. This basically started 20 years ago when I was approached by the archivist of the Bronx County Historical Society, who said there was a tremendous community demand for information about African American history in the Bronx, and there wasn't any. So could my colleagues and I try to create, a database to meet the community demand? I looked into it and found this. There were 500,000 people of African descent in the Bronx, and they were invisible to scholars, to the media, even to the major Center for African American Research in New York, the Schomburg Center, who published a book called The Black New Yorkers, 423 pages, 3 pages in the Bronx. So I said, okay, when you have this large group of people who are invisible to the researchers, what do? You do oral histories. So I contacted a former student of mine named Vicky Archibald, who lived in the Patterson houses in the 50s. Her brother was the great basketball player, Nate Tiny Archibald. And I asked her, would you do an interview me describing what it was like growing up in public housing in the Bronx in the 1950s and 60s and how that contributed to where you are today, which was as a social work supervisor in Long Island. Vicky said, sure. We spent 3 hours talking, and she created this incredible picture of public housing as this incredibly supportive environment filled with people from different backgrounds, with great social services, with people who looked after one another's families. And it defies all the stereotypes we have about the projects, and also about what people thought Black life in the Bronx was. So I did this interview thinking I'm going to wait a month. Her friends started contacting me. When are you going to interview us? We've been trying to tell this story for 30 years.
Wow.
So I started interviewing like 20 different people from the Patterson houses, all of whom are now successful professionals. And it was one story another which reinforced what Vicky had told me. And then the New York Times sent a reporter to cover what I was doing. And it appeared in the Metro section of the Times. And then people from all over the Bronx said, how can you tell the story of African American life in the Bronx without interviewing us? And the most of these inquiries came from a neighborhood called Morrisania, which was just south of Crotona Park, basically between Webster Avenue in the west and Prospect Avenue in the east. And we started doing interviews there. And there we came upon an amazing story. It was a Black middle-class community that emerged in the 1930s when Black families from Harlem saw an opportunity to move to a place with better schools, better shopping, bigger apartments, and also where they wouldn't experience racial hostility from the existing population.
I want to interject really quickly because you mentioned school, so it just came into my mind. I know that you are in partnership with Fordham, or to some extent, can you clarify or talk a little bit more about that partnership here in the Bronx?
Okay, I'm a professor at Fordham, and so I've been at Fordham for 52 years. I came here in 1970, and I'm in 2 departments, the Department of African and African American Studies and History. I was also very active in a lot of community groups in the Bronx over the years. So when I started this research, people kind of knew me enough to say, we can trust him to tell our stories. But what I want to say is, it was the people telling the stories who drove this, not me. When I came upon this Morrisania community, I didn't know that this portion of the Bronx produced more varieties of popular music than any place in the country in the world in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I learned this from people who were, volunteering to be interviewed. Now, I had known hip hop started in the Bronx. I knew that. I knew a little bit about like the doo-wop singers because I grew up singing doo-wop and knew some of the groups. What I didn't realize is there was an incredible live jazz scene in the Morrisania section of the Bronx. And that it was right next to an incredible live Latin music scene, and that the two groups cross-fertilized one another. So in the 40s and 50s, you had bebop jazz, you had mambo, and then you had various forms which fused the two. And you also had doo-wop, the urban harmonic singing in this neighborhood where you had two pioneering groups. The Chords, 1954, produced the first urban harmonic record to sell 1 million records, Shaboom, and the Chantels, the first urban harmonic group by women to sell 1 million records, all in one neighborhood. And the schools played a role in this because they had great music programs. So
That's
no
amazing.
one knew this before the people in the community were telling us this. And then we started publicizing it. Then the schools got involved because
I want to interject quickly because we have about a minute left. We only have a minute left, but I definitely want to get into this. It's just so much rich history that I didn't even know existed in the Bronx. So I'm so happy that you shared some of that. Can you just talk about, just the importance of having this available to so many people who currently live here?
We've been doing this for 20 years. We have a digital archive that anyone can access. We have 320 oral history interviews, all of which are transcribed. We have 22 essays, which anybody can use for their classes or community groups. It's all free. It's all there. People from all over the world access this. So if you want information on Bronx African American history, it's all there for you, free, through these links.
All right. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me. This was a really amazing conversation, and I already learned so much. So truly, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so glad I got to talk about what's going on in the country and how we have to fight again to make sure this history is told, because it's empowering.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be right back with more Open right after this.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
I'll see ya.
After a basketball game, a black teenage boy, Brandon, reads his texts in his family group chat. Auntie Flo, congrats on the big win. Mom, that's my baby. Brandon replies, thanks y'all. In a park, his sister Maya texts, where are we celebrating? Dad replies, home. Mom texts, I got dinner going. Auntie Flo replies, ooh, I can't wait. Then receives a FEMA flood watch text alert. She texts the family, anyone see that weather alert? We need a plan to stay safe, especially after last year. Ready has a list of resources at ready.gov/plan. In his workshop, Dad sends a photo of emergency supplies and texts, looks like we need flashlights and batteries. Leaving a store with a shopping bag, Brandon replies, I got us covered. Mom texts, I'll check in with Grandma and Papa. Maya texts, thanks Auntie, feeling good about this plan.
Got some batteries.
Auntie Flo replies, love y'all, we gotta stay safe. Later, the family
feel like he gets hot every time I see you.
Stay connected. Time for that.
Most hiring algorithms would scream me out.
Some bosses couldn't see me as a leader.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper.
I've been running code. as long as I've been able to reach a keyboard.
This is what I do. It's second nature for me, coordinating 100 details at once.
It's the way my mind works. I have a very mechanical brain.
I sold them on my skills.
You gotta be so good they can't ignore you.
My magic is
Analytics and empathy. That's how I'm getting clients.
You have to have the confidence in yourself to show up and defy the odds.
I am more than who I am on paper.
I never got a college degree. And today, I'm the CEO of my own company. People want to tell me I'm one in a million, when actually I'm one of millions. The stars are all around us. It's time for them to shine.
Welcome back. Next, we are now going to take a look at some wonderful BronxNet packages. Our first video is of the Bronx Borough President Vanessa L. Gibson, who hosted a service honoring the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in conjunction with Union Grove Missionary Baptist Church. Let's take a look.
We are here at Union Grove Missionary Baptist Church in honor of Dr. King's legacy. This was hosted by Bronx Borough President Vanessa L. Gibson alongside other elected officials. The service was conducted by Pastor Frederick Crawford.
The church was filled with joy and happiness as we honored Martin Luther King Day. This day commemorates the life and work of Dr. King, who was a Baptist minister and prominent leader in the American Civil Rights Movement. Bronx Borough President Vanessa L. Gibson didn't fail to remind us the importance of this day.
And the fact that it's a day on and not a day off, and we are living out the dream. We are fulfilling the dream with passion and purpose every day in our everyday work as elected officials, as advocates, as clergy members, first responders, essential workers. We have to realize that Dr. King stood for so much around racial equality and social justice, but even in 2023, we stand for the same fundamental values as well. When we see inequity, when we see, injustice, discrimination, racism, we stand up. Whether we are Christian, we're Muslim, we're Jewish, whether we are African American, Latino, LGBT, it doesn't matter. We're all one and we're stronger together.
A collective of city officials, including Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Attorney General Letitia James, were in attendance. But the Master of Ceremonies and former Assemblyman Michael Blake stole the show as he tells us what this day means to him.
There's many personal dynamics, being a minister who's also in politics, being a brother of Alpha, where we have the memorial for Dr. King. This day matters a lot for us. And so to be able to be the worship leader for the service in your hometown of the Bronx was a blessing, because we continue to demonstrate King's legacy. The quote that King had that always stayed with me: in the end, remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And today we saw many friends come together to demonstrate that his legacy is bigger than just one day. It is not just about a dream, it's about what you do in that lifetime.
Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark wanted to let us know how she plans on following Dr. King's footsteps by introducing a new program giving those who were convicted of a crime a second chance.
I learned from his legacy. I wouldn't be the first woman and the first black woman elected DA in New York State if it weren't for the work of a Dr. King to make sure that this became a reality for me. But I want to make it count. And that's why I work every day to do what I can to make sure that we have public safety and fairness in a criminal justice system that appears to be broken. At the same time, I started a program that also gave second chance to young black and brown men who, for the first time, picked up a gun. Gave them a chance to turn their life around. They're not in state prison, but they're at home raising their families and working and going to school and really making a difference and treating their trauma. And now they're helping others to stay on the right track.
And to close out this honorable day, the theme of this year's service was, "We are not makers of history, we are made by history." Reporting for BronxNet, Chanel Thompson.
Thanks to our BronxNet reporter Chanel Thompson for that amazing package. The next video is about how the Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson, Senator Chuck Schumer, and the Bronx Community Foundation launched the first ever Bronx Dispensary Showroom, a cannabis retail pop-up experience in an effort to empower the community through entrepreneurial endeavors. Let's take a look.
In an effort to empower the community through entrepreneurial endeavors, Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson, Senator Chuck Schumer, And the Bronx Community Foundation launched the first ever Bronx Dispensary Showroom, a cannabis retail pop-up experience.
It's an opportunity for community members to learn the business of cannabis from back door to front door, from front office to back office, but to really understand what it means and what it takes to open up a business like this.
Located on 149th Street in Grand Concourse, the pop-up showroom featured a built-out model of what a New York State compliant dispensary looks like, exhibiting the cannabis retail experience.
The importance of it is to expose our community to what a dispensary should look like and would look like. And so we're very, very excited that this is actually happening, that it's here in this historic postal office where it's accessible to our community.
The showroom was open to the public for several days before holding workforce development and educational courses for those ready to obtain their conditional adult use retail dispensaries or CARUD licenses.
And if you're entering an industry, it's important for you to know what the industry looks like. Also, it's important for you to know the compliance requirements of that industry. And so we wanted to bring this experience to the Bronx because people were going out of state to get this.
Moving forward, all involved hope this educational experience empowers others to take on this industry that was once prohibited and put the community at risk to now bring about change for generational wealth for the community. Reporting for BronxNet, Brittany Schuyler Albane.
I want to give special thanks to BronxNet reporter Brittany Allbane for that wonderful package. This next video takes place at the 17th Annual Hispanic Business Award Banquet and Scholarship Ceremony, where 4 exceptional students were honored with scholarships to further their education and ultimately their careers. Let's take a look.
Tonight at Maestros Caterers, trailblazing business owners and exceptional students are here for the 17th Annual Hispanic Business Award Banquet and Scholarship Ceremony.
At the gala, 4 exceptional Hispanic students were honored with scholarships to further their education and ultimately their careers. They were chosen based on their academic achievements and community engagement while also taking their financial status into consideration.
Some of these people even work 2 jobs, and then also they have to do something else in order to make ends meet. So we try to help a little bit so that it's easier.
Recipient Melissa Cucalon began her academic journey in Ecuador, but had to restart a few years later here in the States. This scholarship, which she was honored to receive, is going towards her studies in journalism, where Cucalon hopes to create a media outlet specifically for immigrants.
And they're from a country that unfortunately doesn't present those same opportunities as they have here. So they also deserve media and forms of communication that take them seriously as well.
Berkeley College fashion merchandising student Emily Figueroa grew up in a school-oriented family, so from an early age, she knew that college was in her future. However, that doesn't mean that her journey has been without struggle. Through the challenges, she realized that hard work pays off, and this scholarship is proof of that.
I wasn't aware that I was going to receive it. I was kind of like hoping, but I was so happy that I was able to get it.
Yonoleska Russo studies community health at Hostos Community College and has a background in the beauty industry. After obtaining her degree, her goal is to give back to the community by offering therapeutic body services to aid in tension and stress relief.
There's a lot of things that are going on in the city. You know, a lot of factors that play a part in our lives and our health, and we don't take enough time to give back to our own bodies and give back to ourselves.
Gianna Pascal is also a student at Hostos Community College. She is studying early childhood education and plans to attend a 4-year school and become a Board of Education teacher. Although not always easy navigating college in a hybrid setting, Pascal thanks the staff at Hostos for their help.
We have great support system. There is a woman named Marina. She's one of the Scholarship Club's directors. She has been a great supporter to me.
The New York City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is honored to hand out these awards and is excited to see what this year's cohort goes on to do. Reporting for BronxNet, Brittany Schuyler Albane.
That seemed like a wonderful event. Now, our last video is about how Give a Note Foundation partnered with TikTok stars the Boykins to announce their first donation toward a multi-year commitment to build a new state-of-the-art music production department right here in the Bronx. Let's take a look.
Wings Academy High School has a lot to be thankful for this holiday season as they partnered up with Give a Note Foundation, who offered a $15,000 musical donation towards their program, and it was hosted by TikTok superstars, the Boykins. TikTok stars the Boykins surprised students at Wings Academy High School with a performance and a $15,000 donation from Give a Note Foundation towards the school's music program. Co-founder of Artists for Artists, Matthew Reich, tells us all about the partnership.
We work closely with Give a Note Foundation, which is an organization that brings opportunities like this, amazing, incredible opportunities to bring music education to schools where it's needed the most, in communities that are underserved, where students can really benefit from some of the tools that the world has to offer.
The Boykins wanted to share how much of an impact they wanted to spread to the youth, and here is what they had to say.
This experience has reminded us why we do what we do, and our purpose is, to inspire the next, and just to absorb that energy, and just to get the reaction to our music. It just means the world.
The energy was immaculate. I loved it so much. This is what we needed, as people. We need to be uplifted like this, like we uplift them. Give the same energy back and forth. So we loved it today.
The principal of Wings Academy High School, Monique Jackson Dickens, wanted students to know how important music is and what the donation can do for them in the near future.
So it was definitely a surprise to me. But we were awarded a $15,000 grant to build a music studio, and that's something that we know music is universal. Many of our students, they love music, and we want to be able to give them an opportunity to be able to learn about music, produce their own music, so that they can move on to the careers of their choice.
Music is where the heart is, and that's why Melissa Salguero, Wings Academy's music teacher, wanted to express what the students mean to her and why music is an outlet.
Honestly, it gets me kind of emotional because, it's a hard time to be a teacher, and we're struggling to create a high-quality music education program here. This is my second year at Wings Academy, and I love this school so much, but we need so many resources. We're focusing on building a music technology lab so that the students can stop talking about music and start making music.
Reporting for BronxNet, Chanel Thompson.
To stay connected with all of the amazing packages from our BronxNet reporters, please go to our YouTube channel at BronxNet. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more Open after this.
Man, it's lonely. Going through life lonely.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music, just expressing how you feel. I'm going to talk to Howie about his feelings, make it into a song.
COVID-19 has changed how we spend weekends with the girls. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to brunching instead of late-night munching. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts. As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Should I get it? Is it safe? Should I wait?
It's okay to have questions. Now get the facts at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
Is it time yet?
It's time.
Mom's done time for dinner.
Oh, terrific.
Mom's done dinner.
Donating pet food is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Throw my heart out there in the open. Trees make you feel smaller. Can't help but get lost again.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
Dear moms and dads, what you have achieved here today is going to help us and our futures. It is why we are coming up on stage to collect your diplomas. You know it's true. Mom, we love you always. Everything I do.
When you graduate, they graduate.
Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
I know what you're thinking. I need a job.
Well, I've been there.
I've been there.
But you gotta keep going.
You just need the right skills. Find an apprenticeship.
I found a course online.
You can do this.
You will find something.
You will find something new.
Welcome back. Continuing her effort to encourage people to take care of their skin, Crystal Nunez created the Beauty Experience. The last time she was on the show, she promoted self-care with her business, and now she has a new book titled Skin, A Guide to Loving the Skin You're In. Nunez now joins me to discuss the book. Crystal, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me once again here.
I know,
excited
in
to be
person,
here.
it's exciting. Now, as I mentioned, you have a new book. Can you just talk a little bit, more about, you were already a businesswoman, but why you decided to take that next step and create a book?
So I have a lot of clients that, as much as they try to take care of the skin, they don't know what kind of skin type they have. So I wanted to create something that they can have and they can figure out at home and start a routine. Not everybody can afford a facial. Not everybody wants to go in for a facial. So I do want to prepare people to know what kind of skin they have so that it's easier for them to maintain.
Now, I like that you brought up, that not everybody could afford a facial, because I think sometimes when we think about skincare, we don't actually talk about, the price or, how sometimes it's not always accessible. Why was that important for you to, look at considering maybe the different types of clients you have or where we're located? Why was that important for you?
It's important because I want to be able to help everyone, even though they can't come to me. I want them to have access to know what kind of skin type they have and to be able to take care of themselves. I want them to do it outside of my location.
That's amazing. Now, can you talk about, what was the process from taking this book, just from an idea to an actual, book that we can actually have here on the table? What was that process like?
It was a very long process. I'm not the best writer, so it took a long time. I know since I was a little girl, I always said like, it'd be so cool to write a book. So I always wanted to do that. But it took a very long time, a lot of research. I wanted to make something small so it doesn't intimidate, especially the younger crowd. If they see a textbook, they're not going to touch it. So I wanted something small, but with a lot of information to help people. So it was a little bit of a challenge, but we made it work.
Now, is this the first book that you've ever written?
This is the first book, yes.
Oh, that's amazing. So what have you learned from that experience so far? Outside of maybe, stuff about skin, what have you learned, just as a businesswoman who is, continuing her journey in this field?
Everything you do takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of research and dedication to do it. I'm a mother of 3, so taking the time plus the business to put all the information that I wanted in the book and do the research, you just have to dedicate time because everything takes a lot of work.
Now, can you talk a little bit more about what the book is about? Because we say skin, and that's such a broad term. You mentioned that it's the largest organ, which I just learned that even, just now. I was like, wow. So can you just tell us a little bit more just in general what the book is about?
So the book talks about the 5 different skin types that we have. It talks about each skin type and how you can treat it. So it's more like a guide. It's a guide. It's going to train you on the different kinds of skin and what you can do to treat it, to take care of it.
Now, why was it important for people to know about, different skin types? I think people always think that they know something like, oh, well, I have dry skin or I have this type of skin. But, why was it important for you to let people know like, hey, there's actually 5 types and, this is how you take care of it?
Well, that's exactly why, because some people think that they have combination skin, but they actually don't. They have drier skin. So it's once you read that, you'll notice like, oh, maybe that's not the skin type I have. I have this kind. So it's a guide to help you understand and figure out exactly what kind of skin type you have.
Now, your book covers various topics about skincare, but if you had to highlight one section, which section would you say is probably the one thing that everybody should know about their skin?
So I would highlight chapter 2 and 3 because it talks about the 5 different skin. If you won't know which one you have until you see and read all the different ones. So that's maybe the chapters that I would focus more on.
Now, I think something that's really interesting is that when we talk about skincare and self-care is usually centered around women, right? Or girls or, young women. But men should also, look into skincare as well. Can you tell me your thoughts on that? And is this something that they could also learn from too?
Absolutely. Guys should, and you don't think so, but they actually do take care of their skin a lot. When they're in there and they're shaving, they have like all these little products that they do use. But yes, guys should take care of their skin. This is definitely a book that would benefit because it doesn't just speak about women, it speak about just skin in period. So we do at the spa offer facials just for men. It's a very pink location, but we do offer stuff for men because we want to invite them to come and take care of their skin more.
Right. And I could imagine if you're using, let's say for men, it's, maybe shaving tools, you could get ingrown hairs. That's also another concern for a lot of people. I also want to touch on the topic of makeup and skin, because I think a lot of people use them as like two separate things or use one to cover the other. But can you talk about how the use of makeup could, also impact your skin?
So makeup can impact the skin because some people are not as clean as they should be. Removing the makeup and just with the makeup brushes, that has to get cleaned more often than you think. Regarding the ingrown hair, women get ingrown hair as well. Some women wax their face. We do have a facial that is called dermaplaning, and that's basically it's with a scalpel, a surgical scalpel, and it removes the peach fuzz, and that helps with the ingrown hair. But yes, once you have your skin taken care of, the makeup goes on so much more smoother and it just gives you a much better glow. And once your skin is healed, sometimes people don't even want to wear makeup.
Right. Now, can you talk about the 5 different types of healthy skin for those who are unaware?
Yes, absolutely. So we have normal skin, we have dry skin, we have combination skin. Combination skin is when you have oily and dry skin. We have sensitive skin. And let me see, dry, dehydrated, dry, combination, normal, sensitive. Oh, I got stuck.
Is it oily?
It's oily, sorry.
Okay.
Combination, that's why I was like, oh my gosh. Yes, oily skin.
Okay, so how would somebody know which type they have? Because I know a lot of people will say, I think everybody thinks they have combination skin. How would somebody know which skin type they have?
So that's why chapter 2 is very important because it describes each one with detail, what to see. But the reason why people think they have combination skin is because in the wintertime, your skin is completely different than the summertime. So that's why most of my clients, I tell them that they have to use 2 different products. Like in the winter, you're going to use something more moisturizing. In the summer, your skin is already, because of the heat, producing oil. So you're going to use it different. That's why some people get it confused and think that they have combination skin.
Now, why would this book be a great start for somebody who, maybe isn't that familiar with a skincare routine? How could this encourage them to start?
Well, because they'll be able to learn the importance of taking care of their skin. So this is a great start for them.
Now, I want to mention, even from my own personal experience, I don't know who I thought I was, but, I was buying these products that I saw online. They have all of these acids and stuff, and it actually made my skin worse. Now, people may do things thinking that it's, going to help them, but what is the importance of actually knowing what you're putting on your skin?
So that is why you have to know. That's exactly why I wrote the book, because people think they have a certain skin type, going by the products for that skin type, which is not your skin type. So that's why it doesn't work out for you. So once you are able to do the research on what skin type you have, then it's easier to buy the products. A lot of these products have names that you don't really understand. You just know like, well, this is for oily skin, so I'm going to go for it. So knowing your skin, understanding your skin, and knowing what you're missing is going to be easier for you to go and purchase these expensive products, because most of them are very pricey.
Yeah, and then you bought it and you're like, wow, that actually made things worse. So.
One of my biggest advice is never buy the full size. I always tell my clients, buy a travel size, because that way you try it out. Sometimes you have a certain skin type and it's for your skin type, but you have an allergic reaction. And you have this giant bottle that you're not going to use of something expensive. So you try with a little sample, a travel size, and that way it's easier. And if you need it, you go and buy the actual size.
That's actually a really great tip. I never thought about that in that way. I would, you're going to buy this 30 bottle, thing, and it doesn't work. So that's a really amazing tip. Now, You talked about science. Well, you talked about names that kind of don't like people don't understand, and a lot of that has to do with science. As somebody who is licensed and you work in this field, how do you feel about people online giving advice to others about skin or using certain acids or certain products for your skin that may not be healthy at all?
I say stay away from the online stuff. Go speak to a professional. Get away from the social media. I've seen some crazy tips that I'm just like, stay away. It's going to burn your face. Don't do it. And again, they're giving advice and they're speaking about their skin type. They don't know what the person's skin type is. They don't know what their allergic reaction is. They're just telling you what works for them. And it's entertaining to see them. So stay away from social media and the stuff online.
And I want to add, we talked about, different audiences. I think it's also really important to talk about, just different age groups and how your skin changes, because maybe your skin was, a certain way before and it has changed. What have you learned just about, aging and, how to take care of your skin?
So your skin is going to need a lot more stuff as it ages. It's the same as our allergies changes every 7 years. The skin does as well. As you get older, sometimes your skin becomes more oily or sometimes it becomes more drier depending on what kind of skin type you have. So it's a matter of, like I said, in the wintertime I have certain skin, in the summertime I have a different kind of skin. So it's a matter of learning and understanding what your skin needs.
Now, I want to talk about the book again, just in general, this process. I think it's amazing that you have a book. Congratulations on that.
Thank
because
you.
It isn't an easy thing to do. Do you have any plans to, possibly write more books just about the beauty experience? And I know beauty sounds like a certain thing, but, it really is just about self-care. Do you have any plans on expanding that?
So when I started with the book, I thought it was just this one. But now I do have plans. Now I want to write about the products, what's out there, what to look for, the names that you should stay away from. And so I think we're going to go for a second.
That's amazing. And for those who probably haven't seen when you were on last, can you just talk a little bit more about the beauty experience?
Sure. The beauty experience is a facial spa. We offer different kinds of facials. We like to train people. Eventually, I do want to start training estheticians there, helping them out to be better estheticians and guiding them. But yeah, we have a spa in Yonkers, and come check us out.
Now, I know we talked about age. I think this is really important. What age do you think people should start? Let's say we have some younger viewers. What age should you start maybe paying attention to your skin?
So we start taking clients anywhere from 11 years old and on. We have a preteen facial and we have teen acne management because they are going through puberty. They're eating everything in sight and not drinking no water. So we start treating our clients then, and it's actually better because they're very insecure with their skin, and that's when women or females start wearing makeup. The guys are not washing their faces at all. So it's most of the parents come and they're like, help me. And we train them and they fall in love with the skin process and it guides them.
And since we're talking about younger people, could this also help? I know acne can also be like a really huge concern, especially for that age group. Does that help with that in any way?
Absolutely. There's acne management facials that we provide. And knowing what your skin needs will help you take care of yourself at home. So seeing a professional, not just an esthetician, you can also, like I say in the book, see a dermatologist if you have severe acne, to help you understand. It's hard. There's so many stuff out there. No one really knows what to get or what to do. So learning the skin you're in is the best way.
All right, Crystal, thank you so much for joining us. This was a wonderful segment.
Thank you so much for having me once again.
To stay in touch with Crystal, please visit her website at thebeautyxp.com or follow her on social media at _thebeautyexperience_. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and to you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recable cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.